man, I want to talk about God today. God, He's in me, He's in you, He's in your grandmother, He's in your dog, He's in the tree outside. Matter of fact, God, He's even in my hair. Welcome to Wednesdays with Pastor Fred. I'm Pastor Fred. Give me 10 minutes and I'll teach you something about God that you'll never forget. Today we're talking about the first article of the Apostles' Creed, which is, I believe in God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. And I want to talk about the various ways that people look at creation. Some people, for instance, say that the universe always existed, that the universe is eternal, that the universe is divine, that God sprung up out of the universe, and that, it is filled with everything that is God. That's why, as I was joking before, I'm God, you're God, the trees are God, that the divine is in His creation. And that's resulted in not only worship of the planet and the earth, but it's also, polytheism, which is the worship of many gods, attributing different gods to different things that involve the earth, and also in folk religions throughout the world. So pantheism, that's what we refer to that as, is the belief that everything is divine, that God is in everything. Many people don't even realize that they actually believe that or talk about that, but if you talk about Mother Earth or Mother Nature, that's really pantheism. It's giving the earth divine qualities, that God is in the earth, or giving people divine qualities, that divine spark within you type of thing. And so we see that in our culture. We see it in TV, we see it in movies, we see it in our everyday language. We just don't really even think much about it. But that's not the only view of the universe, obviously. Another view, bringing in two different things, atheism. Theos is God. It's a theology study of God. Atheism with the A in front means not God, so atheism believes that there is no God. Somewhat related to agnosticism, gnosis meaning knowledge in Greek and A meaning not knowledge, and agnostics say, well, I don't know if there's a God or not. Maybe there is a God, maybe there's not, but I just can't gain enough knowledge to be certain enough to actually believe in anything. But atheists reject God, and that ties into atheistic evolution. Now, not all people that believe in evolution are atheists. There are Christians who believe in evolution and different groups. But atheistic evolution is kind of the extreme. And what it is it believes that, number one, there's no God. And so it's kind of a closed system in that everything kind of came together, the various theories, by chance over billions and millions of years. And we slowly ended up with what we have today, our planet, the way it's structured, human beings, birds and animals, and everything that existed slowly evolved over billions of years, but there's no God, there's no spiritual outside force. It is just this material matter, many times by chance, eventually hooking up and creating what we have today. Again, that's a broad sweep of that. So there's that. Then there's the Christian view of creation. And the Christian view says, number one, there is God. He exists. But also that He created the heavens and the earth, but He is distinct from His creation. In other words, He's not part of it. So it's distinct from atheistic evolution that says that there's God, and distinct from pantheism in the fact that God is not part of His creation. He is separate from His creation. He rules over His creation. He keeps everything intact. He loves His creation. He cares for it. There's that relationship. But He is distinctly different from His creation. So you're not God. I'm not God. The planet's not divine. God's divine, and that's it. So those are some different ways of looking at it. But there's also some outcomes from those different views of life that, if we're true to our convictions, kind of influence how we live life. For instance, if you believe in atheistic evolution, when it comes to morals or values, you have to say that man is the creator of those. Since there is no God, man determines what is right, what is wrong, who has value, who doesn't have value, what has value, what doesn't have value. And that is man's decision, whether it's an individual decision or, in most cases, a group decision, a societal decision. So that also means there's no moral absolutes and there's no absolute truths. What is wrong today, morally wrong, considered morally wrong, could be considered morally right 10 years from now. What is morally right today could 10, 20 years down the line be considered morally wrong. That can change back and forth for the good or the better. Now, that's not to say, and I don't want to give any impression here that I'm saying that atheism leads to immorality or a devaluing of life, because I know people grab onto that sometimes. The atheists that I've known and have talked to have a high value of life and are good moral, what we call good moral people. But it does mean that decision over morality is man's decisions, not God's decisions. And we hope that people make good decisions. Our society and our leaders make the right decisions so that we can live in peace and quietness and not have utter chaos or utter devaluation of life. So having man as the arbitrator, you could say, could be good, could be bad. Christianity, on the other hand, says that, number one, God created it, the universe, and therefore he makes the decisions on what is good and what is bad. God makes the rules. You create it, you get to determine what the rules are. And so those rules are absolute, and his truths are absolute. There is absolute right, and there is absolute wrong, and there is absolute truth. Now, we may feel different ways about that. We may act different ways about that, but it doesn't change the absolute truth of God, because God does not change nothing in his morality or value of life changes. Now, that is not to say that Christians live up to that. Christians do wrong things just like everybody else does, and that's why we have forgiveness and grace. But that's what we're called to do, and God has established that for our good. So you can see when you look at this that there's some conflict in there. If you've got one group saying, well, man determines what is moral and what is right and what has value, and then you got another group saying, no, God determines that, and we don't get to change the rules, and these rules have been the same forever, and so when you change them, that doesn't apply. You're going to have this conflict that we see throughout our world and especially in our society. So those are some different things that talk about how creation has been viewed from various groups. And you see the distinct Christian view that God created the heavens and the earth. He is separate from his creation, and he determines what is moral and what is not moral and what is true and is not true. Now, we're going to continue this discussion on the first article next week. We're going to talk about God's creation of man and what that was all about, and how God values mankind. And also, what God has given mankind to do. What's the job that God put man in charge of and expects us to carry out? So, thank you for joining Wednesdays with Pastor Fred, and I will see you next week. God bless.